across East Tennessee as you're waking up. What you need to know to keep you and your family safe.
We're here at the site of a downed tree in West Knoxville where crews just arrived. As they start taking apart this tree, we'll keep you updated on how this severe weather is going to impact your morning commute.
And there is the potential we could see more of that as the day moves on. Heavy rain continuing to make its way through the region. Winds continuing to pick up as well. We'll have details on what you can expect for the rest of your weather impact alert day coming up.
And we continue to show this video from the Category 4 hurricane that hit the Big Bend area of Florida. You can see the rushing waters. Boy, storm surge always a concern in situations like this. Then the hurricane turned into a tropical storm, but it hit Georgia as a Category 1.
Yeah, millions are without power this morning as the storm leaves a path of destruction. And as you're waking up this morning, that system is now moving into East Tennessee. Good morning to those of you watching Fox 43 News this morning. We also want to welcome WBIR viewers streaming our special weather coverage on 10+.
Yeah, this morning our crews are spread out all across East Tennessee. We have Raya on the way to a potential rock slide near the Dragon. We also have Aaron Velasquez right there live in Knox County by a downed tree. We've seen people try to drive under that tree, which has been making us all very nervous this morning.
Roads are a mess out there. This is dangerous.
Well, and it's really actually going to get much worse as the day moves forward, and that's going to be due to the opportunity for more rain as well as some gusty winds. So we have meteorologist Tavian Whitehurst here as well. He's going to be talking about Hurricane Helene, where it made landfall, and some of the impacts that we're currently watching across the southeast. Now, locally, we still have some bands of moderate to heavy rain moving through the area, but today the big story isn't necessarily going to be the rain like what it was yesterday. We're still going to see heavy rain, yes. Big part of the forecast still, but the bigger concern is likely going to be those gusty winds that will remain in place. Wind gusts anywhere between 40 to 60 miles per hour going to be possible in and out of the Central Valley. Wind gusts across the higher elevations could get as high as up to 80 miles per hour. We do have a high wind warning that is in effect until 8 p.m. tonight, and we are starting to see these winds really pick up, especially across the Central Valley and into northeast Tennessee. Right now, through parts of Jefferson and Cocke and Greene counties, our models are picking up on wind gusts over 40 miles per hour at this moment. And considering our ground is very saturated, it's not going to take a whole lot of additional wind to blow down some trees, some branches, perhaps power lines. And so I do expect to see some impacts, especially within the next few hours. From this point on, the winds will still be a little bit of an issue into the afternoon. On the backside of this system, we'll be monitoring your rain and your wind coming up in just a little bit. But with more on Hurricane Helene and where it did make landfall, we're going to send things over to meteorologist Tavian Whitehurst. Hey, Tavian.
Hello there, Rebecca. Just talking again a little bit more about Helene and how we got to this point, because a lot happened during the late night hours and a lot of you might have been asleep like myself. What we're looking at is Helene in this moment. It has currently transitioned now into a tropical storm. That update came in a little bit after 5 a.m. So what we're seeing now is that looser rotation. You can kind of tell because that eye is not as tight as it formerly was. It continues to loosen, weaken, and rainfall continues to expand as we look at the system and continue over the coming hours. We're still looking at some of the rainfall originating from that right front quadrant closer to the eye wall that's now starting to move its way into the North Carolina side of the mountains, and it's eventually going to do the same to parts of upper East Tennessee. You look over towards the east, Atlanta now getting more of that heavy rain, a very dense city that is not going to be able to handle some of the flooding that's expected in some of the coming hours. Bringing it back to its landfall, it happened at 11:10 p.m., making its landfall just to the west of Perry, Florida, right at the mouth of the Osceola River. So right until the end, it continued to pull in moisture sources. And now, as we look over, we have some tropical storm warnings that have still almost fully taken over the state of Georgia, all of South Carolina, and the North Carolina side of the mountains. We're going to continue to see those impacts that are similar to tropical storm warnings, which are primarily winds and flooding, and the impacts going to grow from the two as we get into some of the coming hours. Definitely make sure you stay up to date with everything you need to, and we'll of course be here to help you out with that. In the meantime, ladies, I'll send things over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Tavian. Right now, dozens of schools across East Tennessee are closed or have virtual classes today for severe weather.
Yeah, here are just a few county and school districts out for the day. Knox, Anderson, Blount, and Loudoun counties are all closed as the area is forecasted to be hit with high wind and potential flash flooding. And for a list of the school closings in our area, you can go to our website, click on closings on the top right-hand corner of the screen.
And if you're planning to head out this morning, we are tracking weather conditions and road conditions across East Tennessee. Aaron Velasquez is in Knox County this morning, where there is a downed tree that people are trying to move out of the way of the road. Good morning.
Ladies, this is a downed tree on Rudder Lane. As you can see, crews just arrived in the last 10 minutes. They're starting to work on removing the tree from the roadway. It was blocking. As you saw in the last half hour, we showed you cars that were taking the risk of removing branches by themselves and taking the risk of driving through this tree. Not sure if we recommend that type of action, but let these crews do their work. I want to remind you, as this sun comes up, there will be more visibility of trees and of potential flooding. But during those morning hours when Jillian and I, our photographer, were arriving, it took us until we were about 10 feet away from this tree until we first saw it. And we knew it was here. So just be aware of your surroundings as you come up on any roadways that potentially have some flooding, some downed trees. As Becca mentioned, the risk for downed trees are going to continue to increase as the day goes on with those high wind gusts that are coming from Helene. But these workers are doing quick work of this tree. It looks like they might get it off the roadway, hopefully within the next hour or so. I'm glad to see that they've arrived, but just be careful as you head out on your morning commute. All over Knox County, this could be the scene for anybody. So just be aware of your surroundings as you head out on this Friday morning. We'll send things back to you in the studio, ladies.
All right. Thank you, Aaron. We appreciate it. There are issues on the roads, though, all around. We should mention Paper Mill Drive. We also, right there on the interstate, there are 2 lanes that are shut down. So be safe because there's a lot of traffic. But we're also pinpointing this system that's moving into our area soon.
And it's going to continue to bring in some gusty winds. I will say from the moment I came into work almost in the middle of the night to where we're at right now, we've really started to watch those winds ramp up across the region. Widespread wind gusts over 40 miles per hour going to be likely across our viewing area. That, in addition to the opportunity for more heavy rain, is going to be some of our biggest concerns that we have in place today. The combination of both heavy rain and gusty winds will lead to our opportunity for potentially more downed trees and power outages. We're continuing to monitor this situation. Flooding potential is going to be at the highest, especially across areas into the higher elevations of North Carolina, where they're using words like catastrophic flooding in place. A high wind warning will be in effect until 8 p.m. tonight. Wind gusts, as I mentioned, up to 40 to 60 miles per hour, going to be possible into the Central Valley. Now, some good news, folks. Although heavy rain will still be a part of our forecast today, most of this moisture will continue to track its way off to the west. From that point on, we'll still see some lingering showers heading into your Saturday and into your Sunday. So not promising a completely dry weekend, but definitely much drier than what we've had for the last couple of days. And that's going to do us some beautiful things if you do need to get outside. Today is a weather impact alert day. The next 2 days, again, going to be slightly drier and a little bit more quiet across the region. All right, we do want to get you out on the roads this morning with a check of your TDOT cameras as we are watching this cleanup right now that we have from a crash, a multi-vehicle wreck that was on I-40 at Paper Mill eastbound. Again, you can see those flashing lights in place. This was likely due to some of the rain that we had in place. We want to remind you folks, with these heavy showers, puddling and ponding is going to be possible on the roadways. So avoid using cruise control and give yourself plenty of space between you and the vehicle ahead of you. Abby.
All right, thank you. After 2 days of intense rain, counties like Sevier County are dealing with flooding issues. Look at this video. It's just off Valley Road in Sevier County, one of the many areas experiencing flash flooding over the last 2 days. We currently have a crew driving through Sevier County towards Blount County, where we are hearing reports of a rock slide on the Dragon, and we will update you on that situation here shortly.
Make it easier, and you're hauling a lot of precious cargo back there.
And we are continuing to follow bus drivers and how they took extra precautions this week. School bus drivers across East Tennessee took those extra precautions as they tried to get kids to school in heavy rains and flooding.
And now, as high wind speeds and continued rain are increasing across the area, dozens of county and city school districts are canceling classes today. The Maryville Director of Transportation says it's not an easy choice to make.
No singular person will make the decisions. To cancel school is a big deal.
He says district leaders consult law enforcement, the city, and school bus drivers before making the decision to cancel classes.
And a reminder, as Helene travels through the area, you can stay up to date with the latest forecast warnings, closures right there in the palm of your hand. Scan this QR code and it will help you easily download our 10 News app. And we continue more of our weather impact coverage in just a few minutes. We check back in with Aaron Velasquez live in Knox County on road conditions.
That's right, ladies. We're here in West Knox County at the site of a downed tree. Crews just arrived in the last 15 minutes to start working on it. This is an example of what you might face on your morning commute. We'll give you more later on about what you can do to protect yourself and your car in this rainy weather.
And you just heard Aaron talking about rain. We're also expecting winds to pick up as we go throughout the rest of the morning. We'll talk details about the opportunity for more downed trees and power outages across the region in just a little bit. All right, good morning, everybody. Well, we are tracking a weather impact alert day in place today, and this is primarily due to the heavy rain showers that are pushing their way through the region this morning, and the combination of what we're going to be seeing with saturated soil and gusty winds moving into the area heading into the afternoon. So it is going to be a rather busy day across the region, especially as things start to ramp up here. We still currently have tropical storm Helene, which is just off to our southeast. It's bringing in flash flood warnings across the northern half of Georgia and the opportunity for some stronger storms moving through parts of the Carolinas. With this system, our main concern again is going to be gusty winds, but we also have the chance of seeing a very heavy rain continuing to move into the region. The highest risk for seeing flooding concerns will remain just off to our east into the higher elevations of North Carolina. This is where the Weather Prediction Center is highlighting that extreme risk for flooding, and they're using words like catastrophic flooding, historic flooding in place. As I mentioned before, the risk for severe weather here across East Tennessee is low, not completely out of the table or off the table as we go into northeast Tennessee, but the greater potential opportunity for strong to severe thunderstorms, and some of the storms include rotation, are going to be primarily just off to our east in the Carolinas. Futurecast models showing that we'll watch this center of low continue to slide its way up into East Tennessee as we get closer to about mid-morning. Again, remember, it's still Tropical Storm Helene, but by the time it does make its way into East Tennessee, it's going to start to weaken again even more as it pushes its way inland, and we will be watching the remnants of this storm push into the area. Rain chances really do taper off as we go into the afternoon and evening hours. Winds will still be a big part of the forecast all the way through the evening tonight. And then tomorrow we'll watch wraparound moisture as this low pressure system just kind of gets hung up just off to our west. So multiple rounds of rain will be possible for both your Saturday and your Sunday, but the heaviest rain is forecast to remain in two parts of West and Middle Tennessee. Your 7-day forecast shows temperatures staying in the 70s throughout the weekend. Still a little wet both Saturday and Sunday, drying out as we go into the early part of next week. All right, let's get you out on the roads this morning with a check of your TDOT cameras. We're still watching again some cleanup efforts that we have. This is due to a multi-vehicle wreck that we once had on I-40 eastbound near the paper mill exit. Elsewhere, it looks like drive times are still in the green. However, we are seeing some delays, or I should say road closures across the higher elevations going into the Smokies. Ladies.
All right, thank you so much, Rebecca. We appreciate it. Kind of messy out there on the roads. Do be safe.
And we're taking a live look this morning at Tampa, just south of where Tropical Storm Helene made landfall last night as a Category 4 hurricane. Much calmer there this morning, but winds at one point were gusting as high as 140 miles per hour. One person was killed in the storm in Florida. Of course, Helene, now a tropical storm, currently blasting Georgia. More deaths now being reported. This video is from overnight. You can see high waters in an Atlanta neighborhood. Crews are rescuing people and pets from floodwaters. So far, we've learned 3 people in Georgia were killed this morning. NBC News now reporting more than 2 million people across the southeast are without power. And this morning, we're tracking the latest road conditions and weather damage across Knox County.
We check back in with Aaron Velasquez live in Knox County near where a tree fell down in these storms. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, ladies. As you can see behind me, Knox County crews are starting to work at removing this tree that's blocking the part of the main road at Rudder Lane. But while I've got you on my handheld, I want to show you something. I'm going to flip this camera so you can take a look around at what we talk about by what these rains and winds can do. Look at these roots that have just been uprooted. We're talking about 7 to 8 feet, possibly 9 feet of roots that this 20 to 30 feet tree, if I had to guesstimate, was connected to, that were just ripped out of the ground. You can imagine the power of this tree when it fell and hit across this roadway. That's why crews came out here so quickly. We're approximately out here for about 15-20 minutes before they arrived, and they're currently, chopping this tree down with chainsaws, obviously wearing protective equipment because this is a dangerous situation. There's power lines just right there. This could have possibly been a lot worse if this tree would have fallen in any other direction, but luckily these crews are out here working hard on getting this tree situation fixed as quickly as possible so commuters can be back on their roadways for their morning routine. But we'll continue to monitor the situations across Knox County, from trees to potential flooding. This is what you might face on your way to work or your morning commute this morning. We'll send things back to you in the studio, ladies.
All right, Aaron, thanks so much.
And we are taking a live look this morning at Gatlinburg. The city was hit with heavy rainfall and flash flooding this week. It's now preparing for high wind speeds, but boy, visibility is very low right now. We send it over to Tavian, who's been following the path of the storm and how it's going to impact us later this morning.
Hello there, ladies. Again, just talking about how a lot of the damage so far has been from flooding. That's kind of part of the reason that our Gatlinburg camera is so foggy right now. Consistent days of heavy rainfall that's moving its way on through, and so now all of that is just slowly trying to lift. It's going to be a while before we see some relief from that later on. But what I was just showing you here were the different storm reports that we were seeing. They've all primarily been based on flooding. You can also tell the same from the stream flow levels. This is how high the river levels have risen throughout the area. They're especially great as we look across the Carolinas, especially here on western North Carolina, where we're going to see more of that flooding that's going to eventually trickle over into our side of the mountains. All of our highest river levels are going to be further along upper East Tennessee, especially here in Knox County, where we've seen intense flooding of both the Pigeon River and even the French Broad River too. But we're going to start to see a shift as we get through your morning. Winds are going to become the main thing that we talk about, and we're already starting to see them pick up. We're expecting them to get further of that 50 to 60 mile per hour range as we get later into the morning. If you're just waking up with us, you're going to hear those winds start to pick up. Maybe some branches falling, winds hitting the building that you're in, and that's going to continue through especially the morning. We're not seeing many power outages here in East Tennessee, but I did want to let you know that throughout the rest of the region, we're getting close to 1 million people here, especially in southeastern Georgia. Thankfully, in Florida, those numbers are actually starting to decline, but they're still increasing in the Carolinas, where we can see that around 870,000 people are out of power in South Carolina and a little under 300,000 as we look into North Carolina. When we do see outages that could come to us here in East Tennessee, they're primarily going to look our way over in towards the west. That's where some of the greatest winds will be, and that's where we have the highest opportunity of seeing down trees in addition to down power lines, if not both simultaneously. You'll be able to keep up with that and other changes that we see in terms of the forecast, traffic, closures, all of that on the 10 News app. You can scan the QR code that's going to pop up there on your screen. It'll give you all the updates that you need to know so you can be safe if you're heading out the door. Ladies, I'll send things to you.
All right, thanks so much, Tavian. And we have more coming up after the break. Your weather impact alert coverage continues, how the recent rainfall is impacting the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
And with the severe weather, dozens of schools have canceled classes. At 7:36, what county and city districts canceled school, and where you can find a full list of those closures. Tennessee. Check this out. Friends of the Smokies shared this video from Laurel Falls, where the surge of rainfall led to an overflow of water washing over a bridge. Right now, all visitor centers and several trails in the park are closed.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the Smokies this morning, Asheville preparing for catastrophic flooding. This is video from Asheville near the French Broad River. The National Weather Service in the area said today's flooding is expected to be one of the most significant weather events to happen in this area ever.
Areas like Wares Valley are experiencing flash flooding. These photos were sent to us by Ashley Teester. As you can see, areas were completely covered in water. If you have to be out this morning driving, just be extra careful. And we want to know if you see any flooded roads in your area, but be careful when you do that. Just use the number on your screen to text us your location. You can send it to 637-1010. We'll try to check it out or include photos in our newscast. And from what we've seen, pictures around the area, we are starting to see a little bit more debris out
out there, Rebecca.
Yeah, we are starting to see a little bit more of some of those downed trees across the region. And really, this is just the start of what is going to be a busier day. I was looking at our tower camera, and you can definitely see that it's starting to shake just a little bit with some of these gusty winds. Went and looked outside. We're definitely starting to see some of these winds pick up across the area. But really, folks, this is something that we're going to be watching now through about mid-morning with some of the strongest wind gusts moving through the region. And that is where, again, with the opportunity for saturated soils in place, saturated soil, I should say, this could lead to the chance for more downed trees and power outages. Temperatures, again, nice and warm in the 60s and 70s this morning. We're going to stay that way for most of the day as we continue to monitor what is still currently Tropical Storm Helene continuing to push its way right along the Georgia and South Carolina border. Some of the heaviest rain is forecast to slide right across the Tennessee and North Carolina border. This is where we could also see some of these strongest wind gusts in place. We're in a little bit of a brief period of dry weather right now into the Central Valley. More heavy rain will be on the way. Flooding concerns still going to be in place today. But as we mentioned before, some of our biggest concerns will be those gusty winds. We're seeing winds picking up anywhere between 40 to 50 miles per hour into the Central Valley and across northeast Tennessee. We'll be highlighting your extended forecast in more detail as today is a weather impact alert day. We'll have much more coming up right after the break.
Good morning and welcome back. It is 7:27, a very busy morning here in East Tennessee. Aaron Velasquez joins us live this morning with more on the latest road conditions in Knox County as Hurricane Helene, now a tropical storm, makes its way into East Tennessee. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning. We are seeing some of the damages from Hurricane Helene. The strong winds and the heavy rain bring the chances for potential road flooding and also some potential downed trees. That is where we just left. We are now hopefully heading to some potential flooding that we are seeing across Knox County. We want people to be aware of these conditions as they travel out for their morning commutes this Friday morning. Downed trees are something that can happen at any moment. Be aware of your surroundings. They can take down power lines. And also this flooding could be dangerous. Do not attempt to drive through it. Because of this, we are asking people to be careful. We'll toss back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. Good morning, everybody. So far right now, we're seeing traffic not doing too bad. At one point, we did have a multi-vehicle wreck, I-40 at Paper Mill. They have since cleared this wreck, and traffic is moving a little bit on the steadier side. But just a fair warning, folks, with these brazier conditions, high-profile vehicles may have a tougher time driving, and with wet roads in place, there is also a concern for seeing some puddling and ponding. We are continuing to see more rain on the way as we are tracking what is now Tropical Storm Helene just off to our southeast. Some of the strongest winds are forecast to increase as we go throughout the next few hours. Wind gusts up to 40 to 60 miles per hour are going to be possible across the Central Valley and into northeast Tennessee. Gusty winds will remain with us into the afternoon before we start to quiet down into the weekend. Moving into our region from what is now Tropical Storm Helene. We'll have details on what you can expect as we go throughout the rest of your weather impact alert day coming up.
And as you're waking up, we're giving you a live look at the road conditions across Knox County, as Becca mentioned, from gusty winds bringing down trees to this rain bringing down some potential flooding. We'll give you a live look at what we're seeing across Knox County.
Live from Knoxville, you're watching Fox 43 News this morning.
Good morning, everyone. We are starting this half hour with video out of Florida, where the now tropical storm Helene has made landfall in Florida's Big Bend area. It hit as a Category 4 hurricane with 140-mile-per-hour winds. Right now, 4 deaths have been reported from the storm. 1 recorded in Florida, 3 in Georgia, and that system is now making its way here into our area.
You can see we have all hands on deck this morning. 2 reporters covering the roads for us this morning. We also have Tavian and Rebecca leading our coverage from the studio. It's now a tropical storm, but it's still going to wreak havoc across our area and potentially Asheville and beyond.
That's exactly right. So ladies, we're going to have much more on this coming up in just a little bit. We are talking about Tropical Storm Helene. You'll hear more from Tavian about when this storm made landfall, which was just late last night. It is zipping right along the southeast, continuing to bring in heavy rain, especially for areas off to our east. Gusty winds going to be a big concern for a lot of us as we head throughout the day as well. So radar right now showing a little bit of a lull in the rain across the Central Valley. This is really giving us an idea of some of those outer bands circulating around the core of Helene, which is going to be making its way kind of further to the north, especially as we get closer to about mid-morning. Anywhere between 9-10 o'clock is when I do expect those winds to really ramp up across our area. And the reason why winds are so concerning today is because we are going into day number 3 of seeing some of this heavy rain moving into the region. It's not going to take much additional rainfall for things to become a little bit on the more dangerous side, especially with downed trees and power outages becoming a concern. Check it out, wind gusts. Now we are looking at our model showing wind gusts in Greene County up to 50 miles per hour. Higher elevations do have the possibility of seeing wind gusts close to near 80 miles per hour possible. So we're going to continue to monitor that as we head throughout the next few days. So again, high wind warning is in effect. We're going to continue to see winds pick up as we head throughout the next 24 hours. You can see the core of this storm pushing through our region as we get closer to about mid-morning, still providing those gusty winds in place for the first half of the day, and then those breezy conditions will stick around as we go into the afternoon as well. All right, Tavian, we're starting to see the impacts here already across East Tennessee, but it's crazy to think that we had Hurricane Helene just make landfall late last night.
Yeah, this is a very fast moving storm, upwards of 30 miles per hour still to this point. And there were points where it was even a little bit faster. It was a big storm spanning over 400 miles while it was sitting in the Gulf. It made that landfall right around Perry, but let's kind of dive a bit more into that. Talking about Helene in this particular moment. Again, it is a tropical storm at this point. And just briefly about its timeline. We first noticed it in the Gulf, noticed it in the Caribbean Sea, moved to the Gulf, did that rapid intensification before its landfall. Now it's about halfway through Georgia, but as it continues to weaken, something that you can notice is the loosening of the eye wall. It's a little bit tighter down here, and it continues to open up as it moves from southern into northern Georgia and eventually into the Carolinas as well. All of that heaviest rainfall moving into the mountains of North Carolina. We've got those winds picking up on the other side here in East Tennessee, and that's what we'll continue to see. Moving back down to the south, just to talk about that landfall, just happened a little bit to the west of Perry, Florida, right at the mouth of the river. And so that's going to continue to pull its way in to the very end. It continued to drag in as much moisture as it possibly could. Now, from this point forward, in terms of alerts and warnings, we still have a tropical storm warning in most of Georgia, all of South Carolina and North Carolina. They're starting to pull them off of parts of Florida, but they're still going to see impacts. From this point forward, we're going to see Helene make its curve likely through East Tennessee and continue to just kind of meander around Tennessee and Kentucky, because There's a secondary low that's going to be further off around this direction that's going to keep it swinging this way. So I'm going to talk more about the impacts like flooding, like winds, and other things on the roads in just a bit. You can keep up with all of that with the 10 News app. You can download the QR code that's going to pop up on your screen in a little bit. The 10 News app has everything you need. It's going to have more updates to the forecast that we're putting out. You can stream the show like we are doing in this particular moment. Keep up with traffic, school closures, and all kinds of other alerts. Ladies, I'll send things to you.
All right, thanks so much. Well, right now, several schools across East Tennessee are either closed, delayed, or on virtual learning this morning due to severe weather. These are some of the schools out this morning: Knox County, Sevier County, McMinn and Cott counties as well. Christian Academy of Knoxville is on a delayed start. Classes start at 9, and this list is much larger than what we're showing you. We have the full list posted online, wbir.com/closings.
As we continue tracking storms moving through our area, we already see its impact here on our roadways.
Yeah, right now officials warn drivers to be careful on the roads this morning and to watch out for flooding. Aaron Velasquez is live this morning with the latest on the road conditions in Knox County. Aaron, you've been driving around this morning. What are you seeing? High winds yet?
Ladies, we just passed through the Pond Gap neighborhood. We just passed through the Pond Gap neighborhood of West Knoxville. We're on Paper Mill Drive heading west, keeping our eye out for any potential flooding. A live look at the road conditions. We are seeing a lot more traffic on 40 than we were seeing earlier this morning, which means that this traffic needs to be careful and be aware of what they are driving on. This is some slick roads because of this light rain that's coming down. That's all it takes to create some slickness in the roads, to create some puddling and maybe some potential chances for hydroplaning. We ask folks to be careful if they do encounter a hydroplaning situation. Leaders say that you need to do not panic, hold your speed, maybe lower it just a little bit, take your foot off the accelerator, do not try to hit the brakes, and just attempt to just stay calm in those situations. Like Becca mentioned, we are seeing some downed trees. We just left the site of one of those that we saw in West Knoxville on Rudder Lane, but because of these high winds, we just want people to be aware of their surroundings. As the morning continues to progress, the potential for downed trees is going to increase, and we want people to be aware that there is that possibility. Just please be careful as you head out on your morning commutes, and we'll send things back to you in the studio.
And thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll keep talking to you throughout the next hour and a half.
We want to send it back to Rebecca now to get an update on the track and how this is impacting us here. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I know that there's a lot of questions this morning. You may be waking up and you might be going, all right, so where's all this wind that you were talking about? Patience, folks. Again, we're talking about a system that just made landfall last night as a Category 4 hurricane. It still is a tropical storm, so it's Tropical Storm Helene just off to our southeast, but the outer bands of this system are forecast to continue to push their way into the region as the morning continues on. The concern for flash flooding is still going to be in place, especially for the first half of the day. And then our concern on top of that also includes gusty winds. We do have that level 2 and level 3 risk in place for flooding from the Weather Prediction Center. The highest risk for flooding is going to remain off to our east. A high wind warning is in effect until 8 p.m. tonight. We're already seeing wind gusts up to around 40 to 50 miles per hour possible across northeast Tennessee. Now today, wind is going to be our big story. Rain, not as much, but considering how soggy the ground is already, it's not going to take as much wind force to knock down some trees or power outages as it would say, let's say, if we had a little bit more of a drier soil in place. So that is going to be something we continue to watch throughout the rest of the morning, into the afternoon hours, and into the weekend. We'll still see some wraparound moisture in place. All right, let's get you out on the roads this morning with a check of your TDOT cameras. Thankfully, most of our major roads right now are in the clear. At one point, we did have one multi-vehicle wreck, and this was moving into the downtown Knoxville area. Thankfully, no wrecks right now at the moment, but be prepared for some wet roads and higher profile vehicles. It could be a little bit tougher to drive with some of these gusty winds. Ladies.
All right, Rebecca, thank you. And we are also tracking Helene's impact here in East Tennessee. This is a live look at Douglas Lake from our Dandridge cam. Officials say that it could rise up to 16 feet over the next few days because of Helene. Soggy conditions out there. We're going to get another live check with our teams on the roads this morning.
Yep, we're going to talk more about all the different impacts that we're seeing, especially when it comes to what we're seeing on the roads. Welcome back, East Tennessee. I was taking a moment to look at the roads. That's why I kind of ran back over here. We have a couple of new updates that we are seeing. Now, coming off the end of the last break, we were showing you just a look over 40 at Paper Mill, where we were starting to get a little bit more of that clearing. Now I'm noticing there's a new crash over there, right there on 127 southbound in the Crossville area. They have that main roadway closed at Lawson Road, likely because of some kind of storm damage. We move things over into Blount County, and I did want to let you know that along the Dragon, we are still looking at an investigation at a rock slide that THP is currently working on and hoping to clear. We also have a little bit of activity in Knox County. Hollywood Road in particular is known to be flooding like a river, and that's a direct quote that we got from one of our viewers that sent some of that information in. We look further down to our south. We see in McMinn County, right around the Athens area, we've got a roadblock between County Road 718 and 717. They're doing some emergency repairs to hopefully get that back up and running. Now, as we look further over into the North Carolina side of the mountains, you're going to see a lot of flooding alerts, especially as you look around the Asheville area. They have the opportunity for catastrophic flooding, and that is expected to really continue to come downstream as we look into our side of the mountains. We still have a lot of flooding potential as we look into parts of Cott County leading into Greene County. What you would notice there that kind of flew by were the power outage opportunities that we have. We're not seeing too much activity in this particular moment in East Tennessee, but winds are just starting to pick up. This was a look at Walden's Creek Road yesterday, sent in by Sevier County EMA. We are watching a lot of flooding, and while that flooding still exists, we're going to have an opportunity to switch over to wind damage, especially as we see those winds picking up already in parts of upper East Tennessee. You'll be able to keep up with all of that information, be it updates to the forecast, changes in your traffic commute. You'll be able to see all that information. But right there on that 10 News app, if you scan what's happening on the QR code that's going to pop up on your screen, you'll be able to keep up to date with all of the information that we're going to see. So make sure you're staying safe out there. And in the meantime, ladies, I believe I'm going to send things back to you.
All right, thank you so much.
As we continue to track storms moving through our area, we already see its impact here on our roadways at home.
Yeah, right now officials warn drivers to be careful as they head out, watch for trees, limbs, anything that could be on the road. Also, flooding is a big concern.
Aaron Velasquez is live this morning with the very latest road conditions. Aaron, you've been driving all over. What are you seeing now?
Ladies, we're driving through downtown Knoxville now, heading to South Knoxville. We heard there's some potential flooding out in that area. We're going to head out there to check it out. But what we've seen so far all morning is this light, continuous rain that has been beating down on us all around Knox County from our time on 640 to our time on 40. Now we're on Chapman Highway. We're going to be crossing over the Henley Street Bridge pretty shortly. But what we've seen is, you saw it earlier in our newscast, we saw a downed tree. Those are some of the impacts of this storm. With this day 3 now of heavy rains across East Tennessee, saturating the ground, those gusty winds that are coming because of hurricane now tropical storm Helene, we are going to see the potential for downed trees, possibly impacting your power lines. So that's why leaders are asking you to be prepared, have an emergency kit at home. If you don't need to be on the roads, don't be on them. Just be safe as you head out for your morning commutes this Friday, as it could lead to some dangerous conditions all around Knox County. This weather, spares no area. It is hitting all of East Tennessee. We'll keep you updated on what we find as we cross over this bridge and head into South Knoxville, and keep you updated throughout the morning on what we see. We'll send things back to you in the studio, ladies.
All right.
Thanks, Aaron.
Your job is certainly going to be important when those winds start kicking up. Well, high water is a concern from the valley to the mountains, including this campground off Weirds Valley Road in Sevier County. It's just one of the several trouble spots with minor or even major flooding. Much like here in Knox County, Sevier County under a flood watch and a high wind warning. First responders are keeping a close eye this morning on this situation as the winds get gustier and the rains get heavier. Maria Guzman has more.
Inside Sevier County's Emergency Operations Center,
we're just making sure that we are staffed up, ready to go for the night.
Workers have been going nonstop over the past 24 hours, and they have no plans of slowing down.
Here on out, we'll have crews around the clock until things have slowed down for us.
This as the county prepares to receive the tail end of Hurricane Helene.
A two-headed monster. The rain that we've had in the past few days, on top of what Helene's going to bring in.
According to Sevier County EMA staff, parts of the county have already received more than 7 inches of water within 24 hours, and they plan to get an additional 2 inches or more, plus high winds heading into the weekend.
with the winds, that poses the threat of downed trees and power lines.
Meanwhile, down the road from the Emergency Operations Center, the Pigeon River is beginning to rise right next to this animal shelter. Thursday morning, the shelter was over capacity with almost 100 cats and dogs, many who were housed outside in these crates.
With the rain being so fast and heavy yesterday, it started filling in the outdoor runs that we had our dogs housed in.
With no crates and flooding concerns, the shelter asked neighbors for kennels, and neighbors did not disappoint.
Company brought us 10, which was enough that we needed, and then they just still kept pouring in.
The shelter also received an influx of people adopting and fostering Thursday to help make space inside the shelter.
I know at least 2 of our rows are empty right now, which will make room for these guys.
And we want to know if you see any flooded roads in your area. Just use the number on your screen to text us the location. You can send it to 637-1010. Tell us where the area is and we will try to check it out for you. We certainly don't want people out on the roads if you don't have to be, but we do understand a lot of people still have to get to work. So Rebecca is tracking the rest of the forecast for us. Good morning.
Yeah, and I know things right now are just slowly continuing to pick up. Understandably, folks, we're still watching Tropical Storm Helene, which is still off to our southeast. The outer bands are continuing to push their way into the region. So at this moment, things may seem rather calm, but when you step outside, you'll start to see some of those breezy conditions pick up. We're continuing to monitor what we're watching across northeast Tennessee and into the higher elevations of this storm. Now, again, we're seeing a little bit of a lull in this precipitation. This is when those outer bands from Helene will start to push their way into the region. So still looking at heavy rain across parts of the plateau, down into the southern half of our plateau counties, which is just right outside of our viewing area. We do have flash flood warnings in effect. So heavy rain is certainly going to be possible. In addition to that, we're watching the opportunity today for gusty winds. When you factor in the saturated soil we have in place, gusty winds that will continue to stay with us throughout the day. It's not going to take as much wind as it normally would to knock down some of these trees, power lines, blow over some of your lightweight objects outside of your house. Wind gusts already picking up across northeast Tennessee, where we do have the potential opportunity for wind gusts up to 40 to 50 miles per hour. Winds will likely reach their peak as we get closer to about mid-morning. That's when we will continue to see this center of this low pressure system, the remnant of what will be Helene, continuing to push their way across the far eastern half of Tennessee and then slowly kind of meander their way off to our west. As you heard from Tavian, this area of low pressure will just kind of sit over parts of Kentucky and into Tennessee as we head throughout the next few days, which will still provide some wet opportunities for us as we go into the weekend. Today is a weather impact alert day due to the wind as well as the flooding concerns that we have in place. We'll have more in your 7-day forecast in just a little bit. Ladies.
All right, Rebecca, thank you. We are learning of another person killed during the storm as Helene moves north. This is video from Atlanta where entire roads are submerged in water this morning. Rescue crews are out. We are watching our team weather coverage streaming on 10 News, or 10 Plus, we should say. Thanks to everyone who's also watching here on Fox 43. We do have much more coming up. Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break.
Yeah, right now you're looking at video from Cedar Key, Florida, where Hurricane Helene made landfall as a Category 4 storm with winds as high as 140 miles per hour. So far, there have been 4 total storm-related deaths, 1 in Florida, 3 in Georgia. This storm hit Georgia as a Category 1 hurricane. It's now been downgraded to a tropical storm as it heads to our area. Right now in Georgia and Florida, millions of people are without power. I believe 2 million was the last tally we heard. We will keep you updated throughout the morning. And right now, Dollywood says it will reopen today, but with adjusted operating hours. Dollywood originally said it would close Thursday and Friday because of the expected impact from Tropical Storm Helene. Now the theme park says it will reopen today from noon to 9. The Dreamore Resort and Spa and the Heart Lodge and Resort will also remain open on regular hours.
This morning, a Blount County bus driver is behind bars after authorities found him walking around Mary Blount Elementary School with a gun. The school was briefly put on lockdown after a man called the school saying he saw a bus driver with a gun. According to the arrest warrant, Brian Nagel told the school resource officer when he was waiting in his bus for school to be dismissed, he realized he still had his gun. He then walked to his car to put it away. The officer arrested him. He was charged for carrying a weapon on school property. This morning, a 6-year-old boy is in the hospital after he was hit by a bus. That's according to the Blount County Sheriff's Office. Deputies say it happened yesterday morning on Peabody Drive. A Carpenter's elementary student was hit while waiting for the bus. He was taken to the hospital. They do expect him to be okay. Right now, no one is charged. A Knoxville father faces 15 to 20 years in prison after authorities say his toddler almost died of a fentanyl overdose. A jury found Jeffrey Thompson guilty of aggravated child neglect and aggravated child endangerment. In 2021, first responders found the 15-month-old limp and unresponsive. Paramedics had to give the child 2 doses of naloxone and spent an hour resuscitating the child. The 36-year-old father told authorities he used heroin daily. 7:54 now. We check back in with Rebecca. Good morning.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So we're watching the tower camera right now. I'm trying to get a good glimpse of you of some of these trees that are just continuing to blow around. The wind is picking up across the region, and really between now and through about mid-morning and then off and on throughout the afternoon, we're going to be seeing these gusty winds in place throughout the area, throughout East Tennessee. To be honest, folks, we're seeing winds right now picking up anywhere between gusts up to 30 to 35 miles per hour. It's not going to take a lot of additional wind to knock down trees or even power lines due to some of these gusty winds, and we're starting to slowly get more reports from viewers letting us know that they are already seeing some storm damage across the region. Don't forget to send us photos. Safely do this so we can incorporate it into our shows and let viewers know where we are seeing some of this damage. Gusty winds will remain with us as we go throughout the rest of the morning and into the afternoon. We'll have much more coming up on your weather impact alert day coming up right after the break.
Morning. We are very busy in our 10 News studios covering this forecast. We are going to see Tropical Storm Helene entering our area here shortly. Aaron Velasquez covering the roads for us here in Knox County. We're going to see strong winds and heavy rain throughout the morning. Hi, Aaron.
Good morning, ladies. We are on South Chapman Highway right now, heading south towards South Knox County, just keeping our eye out for any of those potential floods, down trees that we've been talking about all morning. This rain has not let up. It has just been continuous since we've been on the road since about 5 o'clock this morning. All it takes is a little bit of rain to create some slickness on the roads, create those dangerous conditions for drivers. We ask that you be careful, monitor your surroundings, and if you don't need to be leaving the house today, please stay home. It is for these reasons that we might have some downed trees with the potential for gusty winds that Becca's been mentioning all morning because of Tropical Storm Helene that is heading into our area. We'll continue to monitor the conditions out here in South Knox County. We'll keep you posted on what we see. Back to you in the studio, ladies.
All right, thank you so much, Aaron. Great coverage this morning. Thankfully, right now, roads are not doing too bad, but just a reminder, folks, in addition to watching some gusty winds in place today, we're also going to be seeing some bands of moderate to heavy rain. So if you drive a high-profile vehicle, you may notice these winds a little bit more than some smaller vehicles as well. So keep that in mind today. Giving you a glimpse from your tower camera this morning, we do have mostly cloudy sky, bands of moderate to heavy rain moving through the area, and winds continuing to pick up. Right now, we are looking at wind gusts up to around 30 to 35 miles per hour, forecasting these winds to become even more of an issue as we go throughout the next few hours. We're starting to see the outer bands of Tropical Storm Helene continue to push their way into East Tennessee. Check out these winds that will likely pick up as we go into the middle part of the morning and into the early part of the afternoon. We'll have updates throughout the
we would just go in, pray.
We're under a weather impact alert this morning across East Tennessee. As you're waking up, what you need to know to keep you and your family safe.
And we are tracking the road conditions here in South Knox County. Just got off Chapman Highway. We'll keep you posted on what we see with some potential flooding, down trees at risk. We'll let you know on what we see across Knox County.
That's exactly right. We're continuing to watch Tropical Storm Helene continue to make its way closer to our region. We'll have the impacts on what you can expect throughout the rest of the day in just a few minutes.
Good morning. We're starting with video of Hurricane Helene when it made landfall as a Category 4 storm in Florida's Big Bend area. This thing came in fast and furious, and you can see the storm surge caused a lot of flooding in these Florida towns. It also moved through Georgia as a Category 1 storm. Now it's a tropical storm. And as you wake up, we're seeing the impact this morning.
Yeah, we sure are. We've got Tavian here and Rebecca. We've also got Aaron out live. He's been driving all around. Looks like the shot's frozen.
There
we go.
Hey, bud. I love a dramatic
This
pause.
is live TV, folks, so we're just kind of going along as we can.
It's amazing we can be live from a car, right?
Oh, you gotta love it. Let's just go to weather. All right, morning, everybody. As we continue to see, we have Tropical Storm Helene, which is primarily off to our southeast. Still watching what could potentially be some stronger storms moving through the Carolinas. You notice some of that lightning continuing to pop up. This is where we do have the greatest threat for seeing severe weather. But the outer bands are continuing to push their way into East Tennessee, and that's going to bring in more moderate to heavy rain, as well as the opportunity for gusty winds. Winds and the gusty winds and the heavy rain combined together will lead to a higher opportunity for downed trees and power outages. We have a high wind warning that will be in effect until 8 p.m. tonight. We're already getting reports of seeing wind gusts up to 30 to 40 miles per hour. There is the potential for seeing wind gusts over 60 miles per hour into the Central Valley. So things are just starting to crank up at this moment, folks. Here's a look at your current wind gusts. Again, some of these strongest wind gusts stretch all the way from the Central Valley into northeast Tennessee. We'll watch these winds stay with us as we go throughout the rest of the morning and into the afternoon as we continue to watch the remnants of Helene continue to push their way across East Tennessee. It's going to be breezy throughout the day today, folks. So even as those rain showers come to an end, this wind is likely going to be with us even as we go into the start of your even as we go.
A little clumsy, it's a lot going on.
Hi,
Hey there. Just going to talk a little bit more about some of the impacts that we are seeing. We were talking about those winds, and I got this camera view from one of our cameras over in the Asheville area. This was taken at around 7:40, 7:50. The shaking. The winds are intense. The rainfall is heavy. Unfortunately, we can see a couple cars on the road through that shaking. It's definitely some treacherous conditions as you look out there, and you can't really see the rainfall because of how aggressively the winds are just tearing that camera up. It's kind of like how Rebecca was saying, those winds are just now starting to pick up here in East Tennessee as well, and they're primarily making their way in out of North Carolina. Notice these stronger wind gusts getting upwards of that 50, 60, 70 mile per hour range as we look into the mountains, and now they're coming around and down sloping on the other side. So places in the valley and upper East Tennessee are now starting to see some of those gustier impacts. As we continue on through, we're going to continue to see that worsen as we get through your morning, not really quieting down until we get later into your afternoon, and by quieting down, I mean falling into about maybe the 20 to 40 range. Really quickly about power outages, this is a little bit of an earlier update from a little bit before the 7 o'clock hour, but still we're close to 1 million people out of power in Georgia, and that number has likely increased from that point, whereas in Florida we're actually seeing that start to decline. It was originally around 1.2 million, and I think now that conditions are slowly calming down in the state, that is starting to regain itself. South Carolina, almost 900,000 people out of power, and as we look into western North Carolina, a little over 250,000. Like you saw in Asheville, you can clearly see why. A lot of intense impacts that they're seeing in that area, but I'll continue to keep you aware of what's happening here in East Tennessee in terms of traffic and etc. in just a bit. In the meantime, ladies, I'll send things back to you two.
All right, thank you so much, Tavian. Right now, dozens of schools across East Tennessee are closed or on a virtual learning plan today. Also, there are some delays.
Now, here are just a few county and school districts out for the day. Knox, Anderson, Blount, and Loudoun counties are all closed as the area is forecasted to be hit with high wind and potential flash flooding. And for a list of all the school closings in our area, you can go to our website right now, WBIR.com, click on closings on the top right corner of your screen. And there is a bigger list than what we're showing you there, Rebecca. A lot of people affected by this weather.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something, ladies, that we're going to be monitoring as we go throughout the rest of the day today. It is a weather impact alert day as we are going to continue to see temperatures staying in the 70s. So right now we're looking at a cooler day. It's going to be cloudy. It's going to be wet. I know a lot of kiddos are out of school today. So if you're trying to find some way to fill the time, being outside is just not going to be a part of the equation. We're going to continue to see heavy rain in place throughout the morning hours. Flood watch in effect until 2 p.m. This does give us a better idea of the time frame for the heaviest rain, how it is likely going to be with us for the start of the day. We do have an elevated risk for seeing flooding concerns across East Tennessee. You factor in the amount of rain that we've had for the last 2 days. More rain on the way today, up to about 1/2 inch in some spots. And then you look at those gusty winds that will be in place, and this is where we do have that chance for seeing some down trees or power outages. Rain not going to be with us all day today. Again, the rain will continue to ease as we go into the overnight hours. We start off your Saturday morning, still seeing fairly dry conditions in place, but a few spotty showers will not be out of the question into the afternoon. All right, we take you outside with a look at your TDOT cameras. Right now, we don't have any major slowdowns across the region. We will continue to highlight your traffic and your weather as we get more details in just a little bit. Ladies.
All right, thank you so much, Rebecca. And if you're planning to head out this morning, we're tracking road conditions across East Tennessee.
Aaron Velasquez is in Knox County this morning driving around. Anything that you're seeing now, Aaron?
Ladies, I'm currently heading back onto Cheyenne Highway. We are in South Knox County. Haven't seen anything too crazy yet, which is a good sign, but this rain is still coming down, which could create the potential for some flooding. We just want to make sure that people understand that if you do come across a flooded road, do not try to drive through it. It doesn't take that much water to cause any damage to yourself or your vehicle. We want you to be careful out there as this rain continues to come down. Also, another impact of Tropical Storm Helene will be those gusty winds that could have the potential to bring down trees, power lines. So leaders are asking you to just be safe, have an emergency kit at the ready in case you lose power in your home. Make a plan for your home if you were to lose power. So just be prepared for any types of conditions that could impact your morning drive, your morning commute, and if you are staying at home, that could impact your time at home. We'll keep you updated on what we're seeing in South Knoxville here in Chapman Highway, and keep you posted on the road conditions out here all morning. We'll send things back to you in the studio, ladies.
All right, stay safe out there, Aaron. Thank you.
Well, after 2 days of intense rain, counties like Sevier County dealing with flooding issues. Look at this video off Valley Road in Sevier County, one of the many areas that experience flash flooding. We currently have a crew driving through Sevier County towards Blount County, where we're hearing reports of a rock slide on the Dragon. As you know, that can be tough to navigate, that area in particular. So we're trying to get a crew there, and we'll let you know when we do. We continue more of our weather impact alert coverage in just a few minutes.
Yeah, we're going to hear from our live crews and the weather team here in our studio.
That's exactly right. We're continuing to watch Tropical Storm Helene bring in gusty winds across our viewing area. Details on how long these gusty winds will last coming up. All right, good morning, everybody. Well, we're giving you a glimpse of your 7-day forecast, and we are still tracking what is at this moment. Just getting an update from the National Hurricane Center. We still have Tropical Storm Helene as of 8 o'clock this morning, and it's continuing to push its way through the northern half of Georgia. Now, we have the outer bands that are continuing to slide their way into our region, which is why we have today as a weather impact alert day. Here you can see this setup right now, watching some heavy rain off to our east, watching those heavy showers off to our west. You have to think that a lot of this moisture is in place is the moisture that we already had from our stationary front that was with us yesterday. Both of these systems are combining, and therefore, again, we're getting this chance for more heavy rain, more flooding concerns, and then today, we'll start to watch those winds pick up from the outer bands from Helene. So looking at your Weather Prediction Center's outlook when it comes to flooding concerns, most of the flooding is going to stay right outside of our viewing area with the highest opportunity for flooding. They are calling it catastrophic flooding concerns into parts of the higher elevations into North Carolina. Risk for severe weather is still in place, although it's primarily off to our east. We do have the chance, especially across northeast Tennessee, with that level 1 risk in place. There is the chance for an isolated tornado. You can't completely take it off the table, but the greater threat will remain well out of our viewing area into the Carolinas. Flooding potential still going to be with us tomorrow, although rain chances will rapidly start to decrease across the region. They're not going to be completely off the table. Futurecast models showing Tropical Storm Helene continue to slide its way into our viewing area here in East Tennessee. Winds will be picking up within the next hour or so. Could potentially see wind gusts up to 40 to 60 miles per hour into the Central Valley. Higher elevations could get wind gusts close to near 80 miles per hour. We start to quiet down when it comes to rain into the evening tonight, which is great news if you have any Friday night plans. Saturday and Sunday still looking to be a little bit on the wetter side as this area of low pressure just kind of meanders off to our west between Kentucky and western Tennessee. So rainfall totals, again, the heaviest rain will likely stay to our west. Here across East Tennessee, about 1/2 of an inch to an inch of additional rainfall, which is great news. We like to see more rain. Thankfully, it's not a lot of additional rain because flooding is already an issue. We'll continue to have more sunshine in place by the middle part of next week, with highs getting back into the middle to upper 70s. All right, let's get you a check of your roads this morning as you step outside. Drive times not doing too bad this morning as you step outside. We're still continuing to see drive times primarily in the green, which is great news. We do, however, have those gusty winds in place, and so we're continuing to monitor that. If you drive a high-profile vehicle, you may want to give yourself some extra time. Ladies.
All right, thanks, Rebecca. We're taking a live look in Tampa this morning, just south of where Tropical Storm Helene made landfall late last night as a Category 4 hurricane with winds as high as 140 miles per hour. Right now, we know 5 people are dead. One of those, a firefighter in Georgia.
It hit Georgia as a Category 1 storm, and that's inland.
Yeah, it's causing all kind of problems too. This is video from overnight. You can see high waters in an Atlanta neighborhood. Crews have been out rescuing people and pets from floodwaters. NBC reporting at least 3 million people now are waking up without power. Yeah, a big increase.
Yeah, that is a lot of people. My goodness. Well, this morning we're tracking the latest road conditions and weather damage across Knox County as well. We're finally hearing the thunder. We've been kind of anticipating it all morning, and the wind is causing a lot of this noise that you might be hearing as well.
Well, there was a lull in the rain too, and we're checking in with Aaron Velasquez, who's been driving around Knox County since early this morning. What does it look like now?
Ladies, let's talk about that wind, because that's what we're feeling. We're feeling this wind, as you can see. I don't know if you can see our front-facing camera, but we are seeing some sideways rain, you know, and we've also seen the remnants of some downed trees here in South Knox County. We just drove over what looked to be a bunch of debris left on the road from where someone cleared a downed tree. That is the reality we are facing this morning. Downed trees, flash floods, high winds. Those are the dangers that you might face when heading out on the roads this morning because of what's now
All right, we are having problems with Aaron's live shot this morning. Obviously, he's having some wind issues, and you can see when we pull up our sky camera, this is one of our sky cameras in town that shows a vantage point of the interstate. You see how much that is shaking.
Yeah, well, and those are some of the kind of problems we're dealing with there this morning. Also, visibility is pretty bad out there if you're driving on the roads. We're going to check in with Tavian. He's been tracking the path of this storm and how it's impacting us here at home. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, so that's the thing that I have been watching, and that was a camera that I was able to pull up actually from one of the cameras in our network in the Asheville area. So what we're starting to see now, I'm going to go backwards just a little bit more. We're seeing those wind gusts start to pick up, and that's something you're noticing, especially from that Asheville camera where winds are at their highest. You can look on the North Carolina side of things, and you can really see those stronger winds, not only from the streamlines moving faster, but those darker colors in the red and purple. That's getting upwards of that 50, 60, maybe even 70 mile per hour range. Now that's coming over the other side and down sloping through the mountains, and that's why we're seeing those wind gusts pick up into the 50s already as we look into upper East Tennessee, 40 miles per hour in Maryville, and that's likely what we're seeing by the airport as well. Now back over into your radar. We're now seeing more of those outer bands pushing their way in. They've got that southeast to northwest orientation because of the rotation of that low, and so we're going to continue to see some of that heavier rainfall as we roll through. The system is slightly weakening as we look across, and so what we have right now is more of that rainfall that's continuing to move its way over. You notice some of that stronger rainfall as we look into North Carolina, and really what we're going to watch from this point is more of those impacts too. I'm giving you a look again at that camera that we were seeing in the Asheville area because of all that shaking. We're taking a changeover from a flooding threat into a wind threat as we see the system continue to weaken and those bands continue to calm down. Looking across your traffic map, a lot of what we've been seeing in the North Carolina side of things are flooding risks, and that's going to continue to be the case as they keep having that risk for catastrophic flooding and getting the most of the rainfall, but that's going to continue to trickle over down to our side of the mountains as well. A couple of disturbances that we're seeing in our area, one of them still looking for that rock slide that we were seeing right along the Dragon, so you've got to be especially careful. Talking about Knox County in particular, their EMA, they told us we have a tree down on Ayler Avenue and North 17th, as well as Barden Road and Sabre Drive. As well as in Knox County, we've got a wreck that does not have any injuries that we saw at 6408 Paper Mill. There was a wreck on I-40 West by Cedar Bluff that doesn't look like it's showing up on our maps just yet, but regardless, there's a lot going on where you want to make sure you're being especially careful. We've got the wet roads. We're going to see more trees down and likely some power lines too as these winds pick up, so be especially careful. Ladies, I'll send things over to you.
All right, thanks, Tavian. And we have more weather impact alert coverage this morning, how the recent rainfall is impacting the Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
And a live look out on the roads again this morning. We have crews out headed to Blount County, where we are hearing about a possible rock slide. We are going to check in with them to give you the very latest update if you are out and about this morning. And with the severe weather, dozens of schools canceled classes. What county and city districts canceled school, and where you can find that full list of closures. They're washing over a bridge, and you can see it gushing here. Right now, all visitor centers and several trails in the park are closed.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the Smokies this morning, Asheville preparing for catastrophic flooding. This is video from Asheville near the French Broad River. The National Weather Service in that area said today's flooding is expected to be one of the most significant weather events ever to happen in this area. I saw in an alert posted on X that they were referring to the 1916 floods in Asheville, which were really bad. We certainly hope that it doesn't get that bad today.
Yeah, it's a big deal for that area. And areas like Wares Valley are experiencing flash flooding. These photos were sent to us by Ashley Teaster. You can see here areas were completely covered in water. If you have to be out today, just be extra careful as you're driving on the roads. Also, it's windy out there, Rebecca. We're starting to see those winds pick up.
Yeah, you can hear some of those winds from inside of our studio, where you can hear some of the branches hitting the roof, and that may be something that you're noticing at your house as well. Today is a weather impact alert day, as we are going to be tracking in still some bands of moderate to heavy rain this morning. The rain will start to decrease in coverage throughout the day, but the wind will still be a major issue heading throughout the rest of the morning and into the afternoon. We're going to be highlighting those wind gusts here in just a second, but first we do want to quickly talk about some of the rain. Again, these are all arriving from the outer bands of what is still Tropical Storm Helene, which is forecast to make its way into the northern half of Georgia, bringing in those gusty winds here across East Tennessee. In fact, we are seeing very gusty winds across northeast Tennessee. Wind gusts up to 40 to 60 miles per hour going to be possible throughout the Central Valley, and these gusty winds will be possible even into the afternoon hours today. So concerns for downed trees and power outages will stay with us as we go throughout the day today, with winds slowly starting to weaken as we go into the early hours of your Saturday. Saturday and Sunday, as much as I would love to promise some drier conditions, I do expect to still see some rain showers in place. This is all going to be in part to that area of low pressure. The remnants of Helene continue to stay off to our west, so we'll just have this circulating round of some moisture moving into our region, heading into the early part of next week, where we continue to see temperatures warming on up. We'll continue to have drier conditions in place heading into your Wednesday and Thursday, so certainly a lot to look forward to as we head throughout the next few days. But today, a weather impact alert day. If you do have any outdoor plans, make sure you are using caution, especially with some flooded areas, as well as the opportunity for downed trees and power outages. We'll continue to keep you updated as we go throughout the rest of the day, continuing to monitor power outages. Right now, it looks like the area being most impacted is across parts of Granger County. We'll be right back with just a little bit more.
We're glad you're here. We are keeping a very close watch on the weather. It is now a tropical storm, Helene, that is making its way through our area with strong winds and heavy rain. We're going to talk to Aaron Velasquez now, keeping an eye on the roads in Knox County. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies. We are coming up north on Chapman Highway now. As you can see, there is quite a bit of traffic, but I want to talk about those winds that Becca has been mentioning are going to be picking up. We are seeing a lot of the winds, impact this rain. coming down at an angle, if not sideways in some ways. And as we pass by these businesses on Chapman Highway, some may have flags outside. We are seeing those flags waving in this wind. They are definitely moving. We are seeing the fallen leaves because it is fall. Fallen leaves just rushing across the roadways. You know, be careful out there if you're in a high top vehicle about the winds, what they can do to those types of vehicles like trucks, buses, but it's definitely an issue that we're going to see throughout the rest of this morning is those gusty winds. We'll keep you posted on what we continue to see around Knox County. We'll send things back to you in the studio, ladies.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Good morning, everybody. As we're continuing to give you a glimpse of some of your TDOT cameras across the region, right now we are continuing to see most of our major roads not doing too bad. Now, there are a couple of road closures. A lot of this is due in part to some flooding concerns. Rain will let up today, and those winds will continue to be more of a concern into the afternoon. As we show you your radar right now, as you heard us mention, we do have Tropical Storm Helene, which is continuing to slide its way to the north. The outer bands of this system making their way into our region. Gusty winds will be with us across northeast Tennessee as we go throughout the start of the day. Temperatures will stay in the 70s today, slowly drying out into the weekend. Seeing here across East Tennessee.
And of course, if we're going to be talking about Helene, we have to talk about all of the impacts and effects that it is causing, whether it's flooding, wind damage, trees down, or power lines down, including power outages too. I'll have everything for here in East Tennessee and the entire Southeast.
We are live out on Knox County roads right now trying to track some of the impacts that Tavian just mentioned, like flooding, down power lines, down trees. We'll let you know what we see as we continue up Chapman Highway back towards Knoxville.
Live from Knoxville, you're watching Fox 43 News this morning.
And good morning, everyone. We start with this video out of Florida where Tropical Storm Helene made landfall in Florida's Big Bend area as a Category 4 hurricane with 140-mile-per-hour winds. It is a tropical storm now. Right now, 6 deaths have been reported, 4 in Georgia, 1 in North Carolina. And this continues to cause problems all up and down our area.
Yeah, it's making its way into our area now. We can hear it. Just the wind is causing quite a stir out there. We have live team coverage this hour with Aaron Velasquez covering the roads in Knox County. We also have our team here in the studio covering the path.
The wind's picking up out there.
Yeah, the wind is continuing to pick up. In fact, we are starting to see some power outages across northeast Tennessee. Tavian's going to have more on that in just a moment. We're also continuing to monitor, again, the opportunity for more showers and thunderstorms and gusty winds pushing into the far northeast corner of Tennessee. We do have Tropical Storm Helene, which is continuing to slide its way to the north. It's going to bring in very heavy rain across the higher elevations of North Carolina. Still some bands of moderate to heavy rain here across East Tennessee, but our big story here locally is going to be those gusty winds. We have a flood watch that will be in effect until 2 p.m. this afternoon. That does give us a clear indication as to this rain really starting to back off when it comes to intensity. And we're also looking at a high wind warning that is continuing to become a bigger part of our story. Considering how saturated the soil is already, it's not going to take much when it comes to a lot of those wind gusts to knock down power lines or trees, and that's some of the damage that we've been hearing really to start off the day. Here is where we are at right now with your wind gusts. We're having our models pick up on wind gusts potentially up to 40 to 50 miles per hour across northeast Tennessee. And really within the next hour or two, that's when we're seeing that's when we're expecting to see some of these strongest wind gusts across our region. We could potentially have wind gusts in the higher elevations get up to 60 to 70 miles per hour. This is where we're going to continue to see the opportunity for some down trees and power lines down. And then also, as we go into the afternoon hours, those winds will still remain quite breezy, but transition into a little bit more of a southerly direction. From this point on, we will have a quieter forecast to look forward to heading into the weekend, but it's going to be a rather busy day leading up to that point. It is a weather impact alert day. It will be in place all day today with flooding concerns in a lot of those areas who have already seen some imminent flooding in place, as well as gusty winds. We'll continue to have much more coming up in just a little bit. Certainly been hearing the wind outside of our studio. It's certainly something that we've also been seeing across parts of northeast Tennessee. We're going to send things over to Tavian. Now, Tavian, we do have some power outages to report, right?
Yes, we do. I've got the state of Tennessee up here behind me. As we watch these gustier winds pull in, we're starting to see some of the impacts from it. Starting off with Granger County in particular, we're seeing a little under 1,200 people right now that are currently without power. We move a little further down south into Jefferson County. We see around 1,600 people that are without power. We move further up to the north. Hawkins County has a little over 1,000. Sullivan County, a little bit just to the tip of upper East Tennessee, has got a little under 1,500 people without power. And right here in Knox County, you can't quite tell because it's got that solid blue, but we've only got a little over 1,000 people without power. So that is something that we are expecting to grow. I can take you over into my graphics to show you what the power outages are doing in some of the other states, because you're going to see that everywhere that we're seeing some of those impacts are going to be the places that we have the as we look across the states like Georgia and Florida. That's almost exactly following the track of Helene as it made its landfall in the Big Bend and then further down into far southeastern Georgia. Even in the Carolinas as well, you can see most of South Carolina without power, as well as over in North Carolina. So we're going to continue to see impacts of those sorts. Because we haven't seen too many outages yet, you're going to keep noticing that they're mainly going to stick to upper East Tennessee, where we're primarily going to see more of those greater chances and some of those greater winds. Now, you can keep up with things like outages, school closures, traffic crashes, and anything else happening on the roads or coming out of the skies through the 10 News app. Scan that QR code that just popped up there on your screen, and you'll be able to access all the information you need to know. And you can even set alerts for locations of interest, whether it's your house, whether it's another town, whether you want to check on some friends or family. Ladies, I'll send things to you.
All right, thanks. And right now, several schools across East Tennessee are either closed, delayed, or on virtual learning due to the severe weather. There are some schools that are out this morning. Knox, Sevier, McMinn, and Cott County schools all closed today. The list goes on, and you can find it at WBIR.com/closings.
As we continue tracking storms moving through our area, we already see its impact on our roadways.
Right now, officials warn drivers to be really careful on the roads. You've got to watch for, of course, down trees, down power lines, branches, because these winds are really powerful, and also ponding and maybe flooding on area roadways.
Well, and some of that rain and fog could be making it hard to see. Aaron Velasquez is live this morning, driving around, checking out the road conditions. Good morning.
Good morning, ladies. As you can see, we're coming up north on Chapman Highway. I just want to point out some of the winds that we're seeing that Becca's been mentioning all morning. We are seeing, as we pass by some of these businesses, those that have flags, they are flying hot. They're flying hard. They are being pushed around in this wind. That is what Becca said. As the day progresses, this wind just might get gustier and gustier. We also saw on our drives this morning, we've been out since 5 a.m. We saw down trees. We saw the remnants of down trees. We saw some potential flooding areas. As you know, it's been raining consistently since we've been on the road around 5 a.m. So that's all it takes is this consistent light, possibly heavy rain that can create this ponding, that flooding, as you mentioned, you know, that could create dangerous situations for drivers, whether it be hydroplaning, encountering a flooded road where they cannot drive through. That is what we want people to be monitoring as they head out for the day on their Friday mornings. We are crossing the Henley Street Bridge now. You know, there's some folks out there walking, which is quite a surprise in this weather, but you know, people have to get on with their days. We just ask them to be cautious, be mindful when they're out, whether they're driving, at home, just to be aware of what possibly could come with this consistent rain, potentially leading to flooding, and these high winds that could potentially lead to down trees, down power lines. Tavian will talk to you all about those power outages, but we'll keep monitoring things as we drive around Knox County and let you know what we see. We'll send things back to you in the studio, ladies.
All right, thank you very much, Aaron, and stay safe out there. We're going to check the morning commute now with Rebecca. She is covering the traffic cameras for us, which you can see are shaking in the wind.
Yeah, the wind is definitely becoming a bigger issue across the area this morning. So traffic, if you drive a higher profile vehicle, certainly something to keep in mind. Thankfully, rain shower is going to slowly be coming to an end as the day moves forward, but the wind will still be a big issue considering the ground is already very saturated. We're going to have much more on your forecast coming up, but drive with caution, folks, especially on some of those back roads, or if you do drive a higher profile vehicle. We'll send things back to you, ladies.
All right, thank you. And this morning, we are still tracking the wake of destruction left by Hurricane Helene that hit as a Category 4 storm. This is video from Georgia, where entire roads and neighborhoods were submerged in water. Rescue teams had to get people to safety. We are now hearing 6 deaths reported across the southeast. That is between Florida and Georgia. Mainly, that number's gone up by 3 since early this morning. And we'll have everything you need to know coming up.
Here's a live look at our Douglas Lake camera in Dandridge. Officials say that this could rise up to 16 feet over the next few days because of all of this rainfall. At 8:45, we have another live check with our teams out on the roads this morning.
Quite the impact we're seeing there in Douglas Lake, and we're seeing that across the region, bringing you back to this camera view that we had in the Asheville area. Again, the shaking. The winds are going to get more intense over these next couple of hours, so we'll keep you updated on that and the impacts. Speaking of impacts, let's take another live look at the roads. One more look at 48 Paper Mill. We're definitely seeing the activity build up, but so far seems to be relatively smooth sailing. Be safe, and we'll be right back. when it comes to that wind damage. And speaking of those winds that we're seeing area wide, they're picking up like we've been showing you. This is a look at the wind gusts that we're seeing in the moment. Notice we're pushing that 50-mile-per-hour range as we look into upper East Tennessee. All of these gustier winds upwards of that 75-mile-per-hour range are now bringing their way in across the mountain. They're going to continue to push through as we get through the rest of today. Now what we're going to continue to see are those winds accelerating into the morning, ever so slightly calming down into the afternoon, but you're getting off work. We're still going to see those gusts somewhere between the teens to even the 20s, 30s, and even the 40s. Now here's a look at all the rainfall that we've seen with those bands that have just continued to push up against us, oriented from the southeast, moving towards the northwest. And you can now see some of that heavier rainfall that's continuing to push into the North Carolina side of the mountains. That's the reason that they have that significant flooding threat that we're seeing. And what we're watching with Helene now is the continuous weakening of the storm. Wind gusts now down to 62 miles per hour. Pressure is up, but it's still moving very quickly. As this eye loosens, storms are going to continue to push to the north and spread out like you're seeing right here. And we're going to have more opportunities for that wind and that rain. So you got to make sure you're being especially careful because it's going to continue to have impacts on the road. Looks like we have a new little alert here somewhere between here and Norris, right towards the northern part of Knox County. So I'll continue to get more information on that, and you can stay up to date with this information with that 10 News app. You're taking a look at 40 at Paper Mill and what looks to be the 40 exit by 275. Thankfully, both seem to be smooth sailing. Again, just remember you download that 10 News app and you can stay up to date with all the information that you need to know. Ladies, I'll send it to you.
All right, thanks so much, Tavian. We appreciate it. And we want to encourage you to download our app to stay updated on the forecast throughout the day today. All right, now we get to the top 5 things you need to know before you head out the door this morning.
Yeah, right now, this is video from Cedar Key, Florida, where Tropical Storm Helene made landfall as a Category 4 storm. 7 deaths now reported across the southeast. That number keeps ticking up. 1 in Florida, 5 now in Georgia, another in North Carolina, and millions are without power this morning. We will continue to keep you updated as Helene continues moving further into our area.
And right now, several schools are closed today because of the weather. Some of the schools closed include Knox County, Blount County, Cott County, and Anderson County schools. We have a full list of closures right now at WBIR.com. Just search WBIR.com/closings.
This morning, a Blount County bus driver is behind bars after authorities found him walking around Mary Blount Elementary School with a gun. The school was briefly put on lockdown after a man called the school saying he saw a bus driver with a gun. According to the arrest warrant, Brian Nagel told the school resource officer when he was waiting in his bus for school to be dismissed, he realized he still had his gun. He then walked to his car to put it away. The officer arrested him. He was charged for carrying a weapon on school property.
Well, this morning, a 6-year-old boy is in the hospital after he was hit by a bus. That's according to the Blount County Sheriff's Office. Deputies say it happened yesterday morning on Peabody Drive. A Carpenter Elementary School student was hit while waiting for the bus. He was taken to the hospital. They do expect him to be okay, thank goodness. Right now, no one is facing charges.
A Knoxville father faces 15 to 20 years in prison after authorities say his toddler almost died of a fentanyl overdose. A jury found Jeffrey Thompson guilty of aggravated child neglect and aggravated child endangerment. In 2021, first responders found the 15-month-old limp and unresponsive. Paramedics had to give the child 2 doses of naloxone and spent an hour resuscitating the child. The 36-year-old father told authorities he used heroin daily. 8:45 now. We send it back to Rebecca. Good morning.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Well, we are starting to get some more of those photos coming in of some flooding concerns across the region. And this is all coming off of what is still Tropical Storm Helene. Outside of our studio, we can start to hear some of the banging on our roof from perhaps some branches or some tree limbs that could potentially be impacting a roof here across the North Knoxville area. Still seeing some of the heaviest rain continue to push into the higher elevations across North Carolina, which is where the Weather Prediction Center has the highest risk for seeing flash flooding concerns. And as you've heard us say multiple times this morning, they are using the words like catastrophic and historic flooding happening in this area. This is where we're seeing the heaviest rain. There is the opportunity for some of those heavier showers pushing their way into especially parts of northeast Tennessee. With that being said, not completely ruled out, but there is the chance that we could see some stronger storms. Heading into your Saturday, although tomorrow is trending drier, we still have that opportunity for seeing some flooding concerns. Looking at your futurecast model, we are going to continue to watch Tropical Storm Helene continue to push its way up into East Tennessee. We'll see heavy rain showers to our east, heavy rain showers to our west. The core of this storm, the strongest wind gusts, will likely stay in our viewing area through about mid-morning. And then from that point on, the rest of the day, we will see some wraparound winds, still bringing in the chance for a few more scattered showers. But a lot of this activity will start to taper off as we go into the weekend. That low pressure system, the remnants of Helene, will continue to stay with us into the weekend, where we are still expecting some rain showers going into your Saturday and Sunday. So can't completely promise dry conditions this weekend, but things will definitely start to quiet down. We'll have much more coming up with another look at your full forecast in just a little bit. Ladies.
All right, thank you. This morning, we are still tracking the wake of destruction left behind by now Tropical Storm Helene. From Florida to Georgia to East Tennessee, we have all the details coming up.
Already seen its impact on our roadways.
Right now, officials warn drivers to be careful on the road this morning and watch out for flooding. Aaron Velasquez covering the roads for us in Knox County this morning. Aaron, I know you feel those gusty winds when y'all are driving on the interstate.
That's exactly right. Those winds were hitting us when we were on Chapman Highway. We just came up now. We're coming up Gay Street in downtown Knoxville. If you can look around, I mean, these flags that line up on Gay Street on these light poles, these flags are flying. They are going left and right, up and down. These winds are definitely starting. We just passed Crouch Park. And as I noticed when we passed by the trees in Crouch Park, the trees all over downtown Knoxville really are just waving in this wind. You know, that was the biggest concern that Becca was saying, that later, as we go on later in the day, these winds were going to pick up, leading to that potential for down trees, down power lines. We want to make sure everybody's staying aware of their surroundings. If they have to head out for the day and deal with these winds, as you mentioned, those higher elevation vehicles like trucks, box trucks, they may be at risk for any damage, any knocking over because of these gusty winds. So please be aware as you head out for the day. You're not just dealing with those rainy and potential flood conditions. You're also dealing with high winds that can not just knock down trees, but knock branches into the road, knock leaves into the road that could be distracting to drivers. Just to be aware of what you're doing and what your surroundings are. If you don't need to leave the house, we recommend you stay home, because these conditions are going to just continue throughout the morning and into the evening, into the afternoon. It's not stopping people from getting out and hitting the dog parks here in downtown Knoxville, but people are going to do what they do. We'll continue to monitor what we're seeing out here across Knox County. We'll send things back to you in the studio, ladies.
Oh, man.
People still have to get where they need to be this morning.
Yes, but at the dog park?
Well, do you know dogs have to go too?
Well, they have been cooped up indoors for 3 days now, probably.
We take you outside. You probably can't tell exactly, although you see the outlines of the mountains there. This is a live look at Gatlinburg, where conditions are deteriorating. We have a lot of wind out there, still dealing with some rain and some flooding in some areas. We're going to check back in with Rebecca on the very latest forecast coming up.
Are tracking in moderate to heavy rain continuing to push through the area. Gusty winds also going to be a big concern as the day moves forward. We'll continue to watch this as we go throughout the rest of the morning, already picking up with some of our data of wind gusts up to 40 to 50 miles per hour across northeast Tennessee. This weekend going to be much quieter, ladies, as we have temperatures back into the 70s, and next week we'll see some more sunshine and some beautiful fall weather.
Oh, finally. We're going to dry out.
There you go.
All right. We hope you have a wonderful morning, and we have much more coverage. Stay with us here on 10 News.
across the road. We actually just ran over some here on Volunteer Boulevard. I heard it hit the under cab of our car. So it's clearly some treacherous conditions. If you're going to head out today, be aware of things like debris, down trees. We're actually passing right next to the Tennessee River right now, which I'll tell you looks quite full in my opinion. It looks quite full with all this 3 days of heavy rain that we've seen. Because of this, we'll keep monitoring the road conditions, the river conditions, and we'll send things back to you in the studio, ladies.
All right, thank you, Aaron. Good morning, everybody. We're continuing to hear about more power outages across the area. A lot of that due in part to some downed trees that we're continuing to see likely. This is from Jefferson County. Ryan Hall shared this photo with us, and you can see that we are seeing some downed trees across the region. And a lot of this has to do in part with some of the heavy rain that's continuing to move through. Also, it's really due in part to some of the gusty winds that are in place as well. We're forecasting winds today to gust up to 40 to 50 miles per hour possible, especially across northeast Tennessee. Winds will remain breezy throughout the rest of the afternoon into the Central Valley, staying a little bit quieter and drier into the weekend. their coverage as we are continuing to track Tropical Storm Helene. It is still holding on to strength as it is pushing its way into the northern corner of Georgia, really bringing in some very impactful concerns across the higher elevations in North Carolina. We'll get to more on that in just a moment. But again, if you haven't had a chance to join us this morning, some of the updates that we have been seeing across the region include multiple downed trees, especially across northeast Tennessee. And those numbers when it comes to power outages are increasing. So this is a loop of where we're at right now. You can still see the core of this storm remaining strong. The National Hurricane Center in its last update still highlighting that this is a tropical storm holding on to its strength as it continues to make its way inland. If you're watching from the Central Valley area, let's say in downtown Knoxville, you may be looking outside. Yes, you're obviously feeling those gusty winds, but you might be thinking, oh, great, the rain is coming to an end. And truly, folks, yes, we are starting to see some of this rain taper off. You can really start to witness some of the outer bands from Helene continuing to move through the area. As we put this into motion, we still have flash flood warnings outside of our viewing area. They push their way up into the higher elevations in North Carolina, as well as into the far southern counties of our plateau, a little bit out of our viewing area, but this is where we are continuing to see a familiar phrase that you're aware of is the training effect. So it's one round of rain after another continuing to impact a certain location. So flooding is still a concern. A lot of this moisture that we are seeing to our east is just getting kind of hung up in the Appalachian Mountains, and that's why we are having what they are continuing to really talk about is some historical flooding across parts of the higher elevations in North Carolina. We are going to continue to see a flood watch in effect until 2 p.m. today. This does give you an idea when it comes to timing that a lot of this rain is going to start to slow down. If you had Friday night plans outside, Friday afternoon plans, maybe you had some plans going into the evening hours or this weekend, rain isn't going to be as much of a concern. Understandably, the ground will be soggy and will be saturated, but what we are going to be monitoring the most is going to be those breezy conditions. We have a high wind warning that will be in effect until 8 p.m. tonight. Winds are the number one things that we are tracking as we go throughout the day. We are hearing the wind outside of our building here, just kind of knocking things around. And if you look outside, you can definitely see some of the trees starting to blow around. And we're starting to get reports again of downed trees. Speaking of which, let's give you a glimpse as to one of the downed trees that we had from Jefferson County. Again, this was shared to us by Ryan Hall. Just a reminder, folks, if you are getting in photos or if you are driving around and you happen to run into storm damage, if you can safely send us a picture, and by safely I mean just like Ryan did here, make sure you stay in your vehicle, stay as far away from this damage as you possibly can, but let us know what road it is on so we can let authorities know, and then we can hopefully get that cleared for you. Winds are going to be a big story as we head throughout the next few days. We are tracking not few days, I should say, few hours. Winds are going to continue to be rather breezy, especially across northeast Tennessee. There is that high wind warning in effect until 8 p.m. tonight. Wind gusts 40 to 60 miles per hour, not out of the question. We've already had wind gusts here in Knoxville over 30 miles per hour, and it's not going to take as much wind as you would think to knock down some of those susceptible trees. Maybe you have a dead tree around your house, or you have some branches that could potentially be knocked down. That is where we are continuing to see the concerns again for downed trees, power outages, more issues that will be with us even beyond the rain. Winds will continue to circulate around the core of this storm, continuing to provide some very gusty winds through around mid-morning. And then on the backside of this system, we're going to watch some of those gusty winds move into the region into the afternoon. This is why we're going to be continuing to do updates throughout the morning and heading into the afternoon hours as well. We could even see wind gusts later on today up to 30 to 40 miles per hour. And with any additional rainfall in place, flooding will still remain concerned. I know that we have that flood watch that expires at 2 p.m., but even beyond that point, due to some heavier bands that could be moving through, flooding concerns could still be an issue that we continue to monitor. As we want to remind you, today is a weather impact alert day. The reason why? We have all of this moisture that's been moving in from initially what was a cold front just a couple of days ago. It transitioned into a stationary front and it brought in all of that rain that we had yesterday. And now today we are watching what is now Tropical Storm Helene continuing to move into our region. You'll hear more from meteorologist Tavian on where Tropical Storm Helene is at and kind of all the ins and outs of what we've had since this system has made landfall. I do want to highlight what we're going to be seeing on a little bit of a bigger picture, and then we're going to go back into talking with Tavian, and we'll come back to kind of highlighting your local forecast again. And with that being said, folks, we're going to try and provide as much updates on this as we possibly can. So for the rest of the day today, we're going to continue to see temperatures staying into the 70s. It's going to be a little bit more of a cooler, comfortable day. Rain showers are primarily at their heaviest at this moment. And then as we go throughout the rest of the day, we'll start to see those rain chances taper off. Still watching again, Tropical Storm Helene, which this storm has just been, it's been impressive to watch. Crazy to think that it actually made landfall just last night at 11:10 as a Category 4 hurricane. We will be watching this opportunity for flooding, especially across the far eastern half of our viewing area, going into the higher elevations of North Carolina. This is where the Weather Prediction Center has the highest level of concern when it comes to the possibility for excessive rainfall leading to flash flooding. This includes areas like some of our favorite destinations like Asheville, where they are calling it catastrophic flooding that could be in place. In addition to watching the chance for seeing some showers and thunderstorms, no longer East Tennessee is under that severe risk, which is wonderful. At one point, the far northeastern corner of our viewing area was under that risk for seeing the opportunity for maybe a few strong storms. Since then, we have been taken out of that list, and we are now focusing our attention more so on some gusty winds. Flooding is going to be a little bit of an issue tomorrow as well. We do have that possibility, especially for areas that are already extremely saturated. We're watching this area of low pressure, which eventually will become the remnants of Helene, continuing to push their way into East Tennessee. Heaviest rain will remain off to our east. Also looking at some very consistent heavy rain into parts of West and Middle Tennessee. Here across East Tennessee, our concern isn't necessarily the rain, more so as it is as much the wind. Winds will continue to remain breezy as we move forward throughout the rest of the day. Heading into the weekend, if you do have any outdoor plans tomorrow and into your Saturday, while it's not going to be completely dry, I do expect to see some drier conditions for both your Saturday and your Sunday, which is some great news. Again, as we go into the rest of the weekend, we'll see the heaviest rain possible off to our west and off to our east, so much so that our graphics are having, there we go, a little bit of a hard time catching up on some of our data. Rain's not going to really be a huge story over the next few days. Maybe some isolated pockets of some heavier rain where we could have flooding concerns, but widespread point of view when it comes to flooding, just not going to be a part of our equation. Down the 7-day stretch, we'll continue to see temperatures back into the middle 70s this weekend. Still watching that chance for some scattered showers both Saturday and Sunday. And then heading into the middle part of next week, we do get back into the upper 70s. So that's kind of a quick look at our local forecast, some of the impacts that we're seeing here across the region. I am going to send things over to meteorologist Tavian, though. So Tavian, we have been kind of geeking out about this storm since yesterday. Yeah. We had Hurricane Helene make landfall just last night, and we're already feeling the impacts.
Yes, we are. It is a gigantic storm for one of the strongest and widest storms that we've seen not only this season, but ever even. It's particularly powerful, and it's still moving relatively quickly. Still looking at those wind gusts upwards of 30 miles per hour. Excuse me, it's moving to the north at 30 miles per hour. Wind still upwards of 60 miles per hour. So it's still under that tropical storm strength, and it's still trying to hold on for quite a while. It's not going to weaken into a tropical depression until we get under 35 miles per hour. So still quite a lot of time until that goes, but it is going to continually lose energy as we get through the next couple of hours. Just to quickly talk about some of the timeline and how it has developed. Of course, we saw it for the first time in the Caribbean Sea, and again, kind of noticed last weekend that it might be a disturbance that we could look into. Of course, we can never quite be super serious about our models until we get within a couple days before. So once we saw it entering the Gulf of Mexico, that's when we knew that it was something really worth talking about. It continued to strengthen through the Gulf, through the Caribbean Sea, past parts of the Yucatan Peninsula and Mexico and Cuba on its other side, slowly making its way into those warmer waters of the Gulf of Mexico, and thus really began its rapid intensification. If you can remember yesterday, that's really when we saw a lot of that strength very quickly going from a Category 1 to a Category 2 to a Category 3. It felt like we were getting updates every couple of hours. By the time we got to the evening, we hit that Category 4 strength, and that is when it made its landfall. 11:10 p.m. is when we saw that landfall, but I'll talk about that in just a second. Once it made its landfall, it continued to weaken and push its way up into the north. It slowly moved its way from central into northern Georgia as we've gotten through the show since 4:27 this morning. Now we're seeing the eye itself moving from parts of northern Georgia into a little bit of North Carolina and eventually to us here in East Tennessee. But it's quite obvious that this system is weakening. Again, rainfall is no longer going to be the #1 threat that we're watching. We're about to switch over from rainfall and flooding into winds. Now, looking at Helene itself in this moment, you can really notice that the eye that was originally relatively tight as it moved through parts of Georgia is weakening, it's loosening. It's at a point that you can't quite discern it, aside from the fact that we've got the general rotation focused around this area. A lot of that heavier rainfall that we were watching move through Georgia is now moving through, or really done with South Carolina and Georgia for the most part. Like you can see, that heavier rainfall moving into the North Carolina side of the mountains into upper East Tennessee, and we're seeing some of those gustier winds start to pull along with it. Meanwhile, another sign of that weakening is the spread that you notice. It continues to weaken. It loses its ability to hold itself tighter. You can notice that because it's got that higher pressure, that higher millibar point. The lower that it gets, the stronger the system, the tighter the system. The more that pressure begins to rise, especially if we start to cross that 1,000 millibar range, we're really going to see the system continue to open up. You can see lighter rainfall even reaching further up into parts of central Ohio, Indiana, central Illinois, and even as far west as Memphis, St. Louis, and further into parts of Kansas, Missouri, and a little bit this northwestern corner of Arkansas. Now, talking a little bit more about what we have seen from this point. We've watched that track it maintain that Category 4 strength through Florida. Notice that here in this pink. So through the Florida Big Bend and Panhandle, then weakened continuously as it moved its way through southern Georgia. So the more it lost that moisture, the more it was able to weaken. Zooming in on where we hit that landfall point, it was just to the west of Perry, Florida, right there at the mouth of the Osceola River. And so to the very end, it was continuing to pull in more of that moisture as it moved its way on through. Of course, it's been pushing along relatively quickly. That's why impacts have been changing continuously and somewhat quickly since yesterday. But what we're seeing right now in terms of impacts and alerts is that it's going to keep moving its way off into the north. Now, if you remember just a couple of days ago, all of this map, parts of Alabama, Georgia, the Carolinas, even Florida, were covered in tropical storm warnings and hurricane warnings. As we have seen Helene continue to make its way north and its impacts weaken and conditions begin to calm down on the back end, we have seen more of those warnings begin to disappear. So now you can see through most of Florida, it doesn't look like they have any of those tropical alerts in effect anymore. Same with Alabama, the Panhandle, and now we see it slowly releasing off of parts of Georgia as the impacts continue to weaken. So you can still see that all of South Carolina is still under that warning, as well as at least the northern half of Georgia and still part of the western North Carolina mountains because of those impacts. What we're going to see in terms of its movement from this point forward, it will continue to move as tropical storm until it weakens into a depression and beyond. And all this confusion that you're kind of seeing here around parts of Kentucky and Tennessee are because once that system weakens, it's gonna kind of meander around the area. And like Rebecca was showing you earlier, that's churning and showing that churning is how it's going to continue to bring us those impacts over some of the coming days. The reason that is happening is because when we look into upper parts of the atmosphere, there is a separate cut-off low pressure system that was moving in right around here. We look around Arkansas, maybe Missouri, bit of Mississippi, and the rotation of that low, the much larger, higher up low, is essentially wrapping Helene into that pattern, and that's what's making it kind of pull its way over towards the west, and that's what forces it to hang around this area for a while before eventually both of those two, the cutoff low and the remnants of Helene, continue to get wrapped around and moved off into the rest of the weather pattern. Quick thing I want to mention just to kind of clarify for you guys, again, in terms of the strength, because you'll hear a couple of different phrases from us. Currently, or I should say, Helene started as a hurricane. That's what we called it at first. As it weakened, it eventually went under into tropical storm strength. So now we're working our way back down in the categories. After a tropical storm, it'll weaken into a tropical depression. And after a tropical depression, that is when we will then call it the remnants of Helene, a singular noun. That is the name of the leftover system. And it essentially begins to act just like any other low that we would have sitting in the area. So that explains the rain chances that we're going to continue to see through the weekend. Now, Helene is still doing so, but it has dropped a lot of rain. And this is just in the past 24 hours. This is not the total rainfall that we've seen over the past couple of days. But in these past 24 hours, we've seen rainfall totals upwards of 10 inches along the Big Bend and along the panhandle of Florida, reaching further into South Carolina, into western parts of North Carolina. And that's why those flood impacts have been so intense and severe. We're seeing multiple streets, entire neighborhoods completely flooded. And even if we talk about the storm surge itself, separate from the rainfall, 20 feet of storm surge that's reaching well beyond the expected maybe 10 to 15 miles, reaching significantly further into the state of Florida, seeing neighborhoods that have never gotten flooding before. Some places even breaking records on what that storm surge has looked like. Now, when it comes to storm reports, you're primarily looking at flood risk. There was a bit of a brief spin-up tornado that we were looking at in Georgia that either has gone away or there was a little bit of time since that has either been recategorized as some stronger winds. In the meantime, what we've seen so far is flood risk, both in Georgia and especially in Asheville, North Carolina, where they had that level 5 opportunity for catastrophic flooding. We look into East Tennessee, we're not seeing anything of that same intensity, but we will. We're going to start to see a shift. As of right now, though, when it comes to some of that flooding, it's all going to start to flow into the rivers. We talked earlier this week about the multiple types of flooding. Flash flooding, that comes from that consistent heavy rain that's going to bring that very rapid flooding that a lot of people get caught off guard by. We see aerial flood warnings from areas that either see that flash flooding as well, but also consistent rain over that time period that just slowly brings up the floodplain. And then we have river flooding, because any excess water from the previous two or the rainfall itself is going to drain into the rivers. So I have this map here, your river stream flows, to show where we're seeing some of those higher river levels. For example, Douglas Lake, like we've talked about a lot during the show, it's rising all the way back up to its summer pool because of the consistent rain that we are seeing. So when you watch the stream flows through the area, we're really looking for these lighter teal colored blues, this green, and the darker shades as well, to really show where we're seeing some of those higher river levels that could cause some more of that flooding. We see it kind of along the track of Helene as we look through Florida and Georgia, but especially in North Carolina in particular, as you look over west, some places at some of their highest floodplain levels. We zoom that into East Tennessee, and all of our highest rainfall totals and all of our highest stream flows are going to be sitting further off towards our northwest or along the mountain. So you can see that as we look through parts of Blount, Sevier, Cocke, and Greene County, but especially in Cocke and Greene County, because if you remember, we had those flood warnings that were on the Pigeon River and the French Broad River, for both of them going double past what they would normally see in some of those levels. And eventually that just starts to spill over into nearby highways, nearby homes. So if you're living near any of those locations that may have some of that risk, you need to be especially careful and definitely keeping your eye on the roads. Remember, turn around, don't drown. But again, we're making a shift. We're going from the flood impacts now into the wind-based impacts. And this is a look at the current wind gusts, where we can see 54 miles per hour in Dandridge, 50 in Greenville, 58 in Rogersville. Like I was saying, those gustier winds that we're now starting to see on the North Carolina side, they're coming around the mountains. They're coming on into parts of upper East Tennessee. And we're seeing that downsloping as we look into parts of upper East Tennessee that are going to continue to filter their way further down to the south. Even elsewhere, 41 miles per hour in Jamestown, 38 in Maryville, 37 in Knoxville. You got to make sure to be especially careful. I know a lot of people are worrying about the airport as well. Those of you maybe trying to catch a couple of flights. As of right now, I have seen a couple of delays. If you go on TYS's website, McGee Tyson, you'll be able to see some of those airlines that are delayed. Of course, it's the easiest way to find out is to get updates from your airline about your flight specifically. But if you go on McGee Tyson Airport's website, you'll be able to see some of those flights that are delayed. Many of them that I've seen are on time as of this moment. But what we'll see in the future are those wind gusts continuing to rise into the afternoon, but falling once we do hit the afternoon. So for those of you that are going to try to make that commute home, we're going to see those winds in that 30 mile-per-hour range. Some people briefly calming down into the teens, but there's even a general wind shift where we do see those winds beginning to push their way up and out of the south. Rebecca showed you this earlier, but this is a picture that got sent in to us by Ryan Hall in Jefferson City. This is kind of what we're expecting to increase as we get into the coming hours. More of that downed tree, down power line kind of damage. And if you were with us during our shows earlier, you would have even seen that our reporter, Aaron Velasquez, he was by one of those trees that was down and saw a lot of people even trying to drive under it. Now, when we talk about wind damage, we got to talk about power outages. Now, this is an update that I've seen coming off of about 8:40 to 9 o'clock. Some of the latest updates that I've seen with Tennessee in particular, just going to start really at the tip of Upper East Tennessee. Sullivan, as of a couple minutes ago, had just under 6,000 people without power. Washington County, around 2,500. Hawkins County, also over 6,000 people. Granger County got a little under 2,000. Claiborne County, about 1,600 without power. Jefferson County, about 3,600 people without power. Sevier County, we see about 1,300 people without power. And in Knox County, we've recently noted around 4,000 at this point, but KUB in particular is saying that they have around 5,800 customers that are without power. And based on the map that you can find on their website, it's particularly focused in the Powell area and East Knoxville. So if you're in some of those areas, let us know what you are seeing in your neighborhood. Hopefully you took the opportunity to start up the generator, get those phones charged, and you'll be able to get through the next couple of hours. Again, we're not as much worried about flooding, we're worried about winds, so there shouldn't be too much that could get you out of your house per se. I'm going to keep on moving to what we're seeing around the rest of the region. You can see we have extreme outages here in Georgia, in Florida, and both of the Carolinas. Georgia, a little over 1 million people without power, especially as you look into southeastern parts of the state. We get into Florida, and the same thing. You see power outages right around the Big Bend area, but thankfully in Florida, things have been slowly declining. And by declining, I mean not just the weather conditions, but also the power outages. When I first got to the show around 5 o'clock this morning, they were seeing around 1.2 million people that were without power. That is very slowly starting to decline. We're at about 1.15 million people without power. We move to South Carolina. They've got 1.3 million people without power, and North Carolina is slowly rising as well. The last time I checked about an hour ago, they were at a little over 200,000 people without power. That's now increased to over 600,000 people without power as we were approaching the 9 o'clock hour. So we are not the only ones seeing this impact, and quite frankly, we are not the ones seeing the brunt of this impact, but there is definitely more where this came from. The map moved pretty quickly. I forgot to throw in those pause points, but essentially what that was trying to show is that based on the impacts that we are going to see, especially as we look towards places that are going to be further off towards Upper East Tennessee, where we're seeing some of those gustier winds, that is where we are expected to see more of those power outages, and that has pretty much proven to be true. All of the counties that I just listed, Sullivan, Washington, Hawkins, Granger, Claiborne, Jefferson County, and Sevier County, of course, and us here in Knox County are all of the ones that are currently facing the brunt of that impact. But we're talking about the rain yet again for a moment. We're seeing all of those bands that are continuing to move their way off, oriented from the southeast, moving off to the northwest. That's because we have that low pressure center that is currently situated just further down towards our southeast. So based off of the counterclockwise rotation, make it a little bit easier for you to see. Based on that, we have rain bands that are pushing against us in that direction. You can even see here right towards the far right of the screen some of that stronger rainfall activity that is going from the mountains of North Carolina then into parts of Upper East Tennessee. That's essentially where we're going to continue to see it stay, and I'm really happy actually with the way our models were displaying this yesterday because it's panned out pretty well. We're seeing a lot of our stronger activity here on either side of the valley. So we get it in the North Carolina side of the mountains and riding further up towards the north, and then we also see some of that activity skipping over the valley and really pushing into parts of the southern valley and reaching further into the plateau. So we're going to continue to see impacts of that sort as we get through some of the coming hours. You can see Helene yet again at its full glory as it's continuing to move. I was talking quite a bit about the track, but I want to take a moment to talk about the traffic too. When it comes to some of the impacts that we're seeing all throughout the area, again, looking through parts of North Carolina, all of the impacts that you're seeing here are primarily going to be based on flooding. That's what you're kind of going to notice with this icon here. Again, we want to tell you to turn around, don't drown. And they, again, are seeing that catastrophic flooding that's going to make it especially dangerous in this time period. But we move over into what we're seeing here in East Tennessee, and we still are looking at pretty similar impacts. I haven't been able to get an update or a symbol here in terms of what we were looking at in Blount County. But as we looked around the Dragon in particular, we were hearing that there was a rock slide in that area. Again, we haven't gotten any impacts, but still, if you're in that region, you want to be especially careful, and it could continue to cause some slowdowns. We move closer into the city of Knoxville, and there are a couple crashes that I did want to show you to be especially careful for. There was one here on 640 eastbound where we saw a crash between Western Avenue and Gap Road. That was a single vehicle crash, and they had the left shoulder blocked because of it. We move into some more residential kind of areas, and we can look further into Emory Road. They actually have a full-on closure. That was because of a multi-vehicle crash, and both sides of the lanes are closed between Cedar Crest Road and Dry Gap Road. So if you're somewhere between that area, find a way to take an alternate route around it. And if you find yourself having to travel on Emory Road, see if you can take some kind of alternate route, whether it be around 75, you look further down into Fountain City, or even riding up further into parts of Halls. Speaking of Halls, we move a little bit closer towards the Gibbs area, far to the north of Tazewell Pike, and what we're going to see in that area is another roadblock. That was also a multi-vehicle crash. Both of those closed right between Calvary Way and Fairview Road. So that is another crash that's going to cause some impacts, and that's difficult, of course, because both Emory Road and Tazewell Pike are both one-way roads. So you only got one direction to go in. That's another opportunity that you're going to want to find some workarounds, whether you work your way back out into Broadway or you work your way over towards Corrington and maybe catch the highway on 11 West. There may be some different directions that you could take. So you got to make sure you're being especially careful, because now we're still dealing with the rainfall. We've still got the wet roads. We're still going to be dealing with some flooding. And if you're in some higher level cars like an SUV, you may notice that wind threat just a little bit stronger. I was talking about those power outages again and how that is continuing to get weaker, and things are a little bit simpler. But part of the reason we've been seeing those power outages are because of some gustier winds. We've been talking a lot about it, and I can kind of see here out of the corner of my eye, Rebecca and Cassie here working on some of those stronger wind gusts that we've seen. We've still been waiting for some updates to come from our greater areas. I believe we've only got a couple of minutes left, so I'm actually going to walk over to you and hang out for a little bit, Rebecca. We can kind of wrap things up in the Weather Center, because I've been talking for quite a minute.
I am impressed.
Oh,
I am so impressed by your ability, folks. Let's give them a round of applause there. Hey, you know what? So Cassie was working on this graphic. Our whole weather team is continuing to monitor this situation. Actually, Cassie and I were noting that it looks as though inevitably kind of the eye of this storm is continuing to push its way into the East Knoxville area. And when this happens, we may actually see our winds just temporarily dip down before they continue to ramp back up. But as we take a look at some of the peak wind gusts that we've had across the region, we're looking at a peak wind gust out at McGee-Tyson Airport of 45 miles per hour. Cove Mountain in Sevier County, 39 miles per hour. Sturkey Lodge in Cott County, 38 miles per hour. And Look Rock in Blount County, we are looking at a peak wind gust of 32 miles per hour. So the winds have definitely been our top story this morning. I do want to also note from the National Weather Service, this is right outside of our viewing area, but in northeast Tennessee, we are watching a flash flood emergency. So they have some houses that are being evacuated due to flooding. Again, this is right outside of our viewing area, but it goes to show that there's still quite a bit of rain, still some of those wind concerns that will be in place. And really, folks, we're just kind of getting started for what is going to be a busy day. Speaking of some damage across the region, we do want to take you out to a live view of a very large tree that we have down. Again, this is going to be one of our reporters was out this morning covering some storm damage, and this is going to be a large tree that we are seeing down at 4th and Gill. And this, folks, is likely something that you will be seeing across the region. Thankfully, it does look like it missed the vehicle that is right behind this tree. But if you live in an area where you are especially around a wooded area, there is the chance that this might be something that you continue to monitor. And I will say also from the Dandridge Police Department, Department, they are also noting that there is quite a few trees down in their region. And so they are noting that there is a couple of road closures as well due to the opportunity for seeing, again, quite a bit of some trees down. So let's see, we have Cherokee Drive. This is going to be closed to traffic for the unknown amount of time due to trees down across the roadway. Multiple trees down are also blocking the roadway with multiple power outages, and that was released again from the Danvers Police Department at 8:40 this morning. So definitely continuing to watch those winds pick up across the region. We've had a lot of great information shared from you, and as we do head off to the end of this streaming segment, we want to remind you folks that throughout the rest of the day today, we would love to get a chance to see your photos, as long as you can do it from a safe distance. So make sure you're letting us know where you're seeing those trees down, if you've lost power, what are the elements like in your area. We're still tracking, again, Tropical Storm Helene, which is continuing to push right across our region, with more rain on the way into the afternoon hours and those gusty winds staying with us today. Again, we're going to be having another live update coming up here in just a little bit. We'll be doing live cut-ins throughout the day. And as always, you can find our latest information over on WBR.com. Thanks for joining us.